Welcome back to Switched to Linux. Well, there is a new browser contending in the browser wars that just dropped down, and so I wanted to go ahead and have a brief look at it. This comes from Mullvad, of course, a VPN provider, one that is generally considered to be one of the better VPNs. Of course, I am not a person that says everyone has to be using a VPN all the time, although there are very good and very valid reasons to use one. Mullvad would be a good choice. But they have partnered up with the Tor Project to produce the Mullvad browser. And the Mullvad browser it's really designed to be kind of like a Tor type browser, only rather than using the Tor network. It's designed you could run it without a VPN. It's designed to run with a VPN, and it takes advantage of a lot of the ways that Tor helps keep you private. And we'll talk briefly about that. So if you head to the download link, they already have a Windows version, they have a Mac version, and they have the Linux version, and there is a Firefox extension. So of course, I downloaded the Linux version. This is not one that's going to be found in repositories at this point in time. Who knows? It might be packaged in the AUR at this point, but I'm just going to go ahead and download it, which I actually downloaded last night. So we have that. We'll walk through how you might install such an application, being as that it is it's not something that you're going to easily install inside of your system. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and walk through what it is. First and foremost, this comes out of the Tor Project, in partnership with the Tor Project. Now, some people might say, well, Tor's compromised. That is not true. Tor is still one of those things that does vex all the censorship guys. If you're not using Tor properly, you can be unmasked. It's not absolutely perfect, but it really is the best we have for ultimate privacy. It can be slower to use, and you don't want to do things like log into accounts. Obviously, if you log into accounts on Tor, you have immediately de-anonymized yourself. The entire purpose of Tor is to keep everything isolated across multiple jurisdictions, making it very difficult. Really, the only way to be compromised on the Tor project is, in one case, is if people control the entry, the middle, and the exit nodes and can measure all of the flowing data simultaneously, which is extraordinarily difficult to do, being as how much Tor crosses jurisdictions and regularly changes its circuits. The second way is people changing settings, opening up files, or other things that move outside the Tor project. This is where Tails takes the extra step further in anonymizing the entire system itself. So Mullvad kind of takes the Mullvad browser. Anytime I talk about Mullvad at this point in time, I'm talking about Mullvad browser, specifically in the context of this video. What it's going to do is it's going to do effectively the same thing that Tails does and the Tor browser does. It's seeking to make everybody using it look exactly the same. And that's really is one of the best ways of having privacy in our current world, is to not stand out of the crowd. This is why one guy wearing an anonymous mask can be easily identified, but 100 people wearing an anonymous mask wearing the same trench coat and the same top hat are basically invisible, because you can identify one. You'd have to grab that person, isolate them, and then demask everything to see who exactly they are. But if you have a whole group of them, you don't know which one is which. And that is really what the process of the browser is. Of course, one of these elements is you tie in with a VPN, which adds that final bit, which is the IP address masking. Of course, then you're just kicking the IP information to the company. You better trust it. Now, they did not make the browser to work exclusively with Mullvad VPN. They literally say, use any trustworthy VPN. See, it says over here, use the Mullvad browser together with a trustworthy VPN. And so with this, I really like what they're doing here on the surface, having not yet installed it and having a look at it, because what they're showing us here is that they're not saying this isn't just cycling them into using our VPN company. This is really them saying, yeah, we're partnering with this other group. We are going to make a good browser. Now, it's not going to be perfect for everything, because just like the Tor browser, just like other forms of anonymity, it is going to do some things that will make it a little bit more difficult to use in every single case scenario, but that's actually okay. This is really designed for someone who doesn't need the absolute 100% full functionality of a browser we're looking at now, but who does need something to the effect of not something so much like the Tor browser or Tails itself. This is a good in-between. And so they give us a lot of information here, why you should care. Of course, this channel, we're not going to spend much more time on that. We are assuming you're here because you do care. Tor developed browser to run with a VPN instead of the Tor network. This is going to make it faster because VPNs in general are much faster. The Tor network doesn't have to be extremely slow, but it can be extremely slow. Whereas a good VPN like Mullvad, like Express, like PIE, like Nord, like a lot of these other big commercial VPNs you've all heard of, these VPNs are not slow. They generally are going to work faster than most internet connections, so you don't lose any bandwidth running on a lot of these modern VPNs. And that's great news because now we have a browser with a lot of the privacy elements baked into it that is not going to be super slow. Of course, some of the more super in-depth stuff, I'd still want to be on the Tor network anyway, but a VPN is not enough. This is why you need a privacy-focused browsers. They talk in here about in each one of these are separate articles. They talk in this one about how they actually work. They talk about browser fingerprinting and the fact it's not just your IP address. They're talking about fingerprints. They're talking about APIs. They're talking about telemetry. They're talking about cookies, all these different elements. So here's your browser fingerprinting. Here's your third-party trackers. And, of course, the big data. The VPN takes care of the IP address, but you do not... there's some controversy about that. Obviously, the VPN simply gives everything to the VPN company. There's a little bit of evidence out there right now that the VPN companies are consolidating and owned by people who can sort through it. Maybe there's a little bit of truth behind that article we talked about where one company claims to have access to VPN data, although we have not yet seen actual evidence about it. That's the claim the company makes, but nobody's been able to exactly figure it out. But if you look at what's been going on in the VPN markets, they've been buying and selling each other. They've been consolidating to fewer and fewer companies. That means fewer and fewer companies have theoretical access to everything going on your IP addresses. And it just sounds a little odd, and that's why I'd rather keep it a little on the the DL as it is. And use VPNs for security, geo-restricting, and things like that, rather than assuming a VPN is going to give me total privacy, especially once I've logged in. I might have defeated the purpose. Your browser itself can be the privacy problem, things to look for. So some of them are going to map it, some are just the model. Here's a little bit more about the fingerprinting. Here's how it all works, and then they have the FAQ. All right, so we're going to go ahead and look at the install next. All right, so we download the browser bundle here. This is the one for Linux, and we're going to double-click this guy, and I'm just going to extract it. And we'll just go ahead and extract it right into the downloads folder. Now, from here, just go ahead and move that over. And from inside this folder here, we have a browser, and then it'll extract a browser setup there. So what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and let's open up a new tab we'll do a new window over to the home directory. Now, if you have multiple user accounts, you might want to better put this into the OPT directory. If you have just a single account, you might just go ahead and drop it into your home directory. Now, this is going to need a manual update when there's an update, so just be aware of that. So we're going to go ahead and come in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and double-click the setup, and that basically creates and launches our browser setup there. Now, we might need to get it on a menu. Of course, this version of Linux Mint, I can't seem to drag the information down to there, and yeah, don't do that. And so what we're going to do is let's go ahead and put it on the menu. On Linux Mint Cinnamon, I might have to do it manually. There might be better ways of doing that. Now, the one file it brought over was a desktop file. But what I'm going to do here, let's go ahead and just manually configure the menu. Open the menu editor. Let's go into, all right, now we're going to hit our new item. And we're going to call this guy Mullvad Browser. And we're going to change our icon. So hit our browse, go into our home folder. Home folder. Mullvad Browser. Icons just has, I think, just the updater icon, so that's not the one I want. Let's go into the browser, Chrome, icons, default, and there's the one we want. And browse for the command. We can probably use that. Let's go ahead, though, and just find the browser one. Should be in here somewhere. That one there is our command. And we'll go ahead and push OK on that. We might have to refresh the menu to get that showing up. Nope, it's there. All right. Click on that. Now we have Mullvad Browser in our menu. And of course, now that it's there, we can go ahead and add it to the panel as well. So now we have our Mullvad Browser in our panel as well. All right. And so now we are looking at the Mullvad browser. So we get logged in over here. I can see some evidences that it does have some feel of the Tor browser, and that it has a security level standard here. So you can go ahead and change your security levels here. So this is standard for all browser and website features are enabled. You have safer, disables some web features that are often dangerous, causing sites to lose functionality. Safest is going to do things that disables JavaScript, disables some fonts, icons, math symbols, and images. It will disable audio and video files. I will note that even the standard DRM is disabled. So, okay, so that's good there. Let's go ahead and head on back. All right. Let's just go back to there. Let's just do a basic search for something. I want to double check this real quick. Let's check Facebook. And this is going to be probably one of my big concerns, is that the Mullvad browser uses its own DNS over HTTPS. And if you'll remember, my big concern about DNS over HTTPS is it can bypass any local security stuff that you have. So if I pull up my own my own Firefox here and I go to facebook.com, if I can type, you'll see it's not able to connect. And the reason I do that is every single Facebook asset I know is 100% blocked, which means Facebook, whether I own an account or I don't own an account, cannot track me around the net. Now, in theory, uBlock Origin is going to be able to block that, but I do not like utilizing browser plugins to do blocking things like that. All right. So I do not like that they have DNS over HTTPS because it can open you up to more browser tracking, unless they are explicitly blocking all of the tracking pixels, which they might very well do. And the fact I can access Facebook, I can access like TikTok, I don't like out of the box. And they're doing this by bypassing my local security firewall and utilizing their own DNS. This is why DNS over HTTPS is dangerous. That is going to be the only tick mark I think I'm going to give against it. Because again, if I go over to my own browser and go to TikTok, can't get there. And I've blocked not only TikTok, but every single analytics company tied into them. And so for that reason, I'm a little bit less leery of it on that basis alone. Now, in theory, again, uBlock Origin is going to block that kind of stuff, but do I want to trust it is a good question. Now, the other thing that you might have noticed as I went over to that, let's go ahead and pull that back up. You'll notice the letterboxing around the browser. The reason this is here is this is Mullvad browser's extra step against doing your your fingerprinting your size. So if you want to maximize your window, this is going to prevent the website from identifying who, like what the screen resolution is. And what is blocked on this page? Let's see. I wish I used this more so I could actually remember exactly how to use this stupid thing. Let me figure out how to use this thing again and do that. Okay, so it's actually blocking Odyssey.tv, which is, of course, we use Odyssey videos, so it's probably blocking information tied to this particular video here. So it's blocking a tracking script from Odyssey.tv, and everything else is green lit on it. So that's what's being blocked on my site there. Just so you know, I don't run Google Analytics on switchedtolinux.com. All right, so other things that they do have the Mullvad browser extension. So it tells us we're not using Mullvad. Here's the IP address. I don't care if you see that. It changes every time I toggle on and off my internet, which is, several times a day. So it does tell us that we're not using our particular VPN. So here is some basic settings. So we can turn on or turn off WebRTC. So uBlock Origins there. It is using HTTPS only mode. Things like that. All right. Let's go ahead and double check our basic settings. Now, one of the things that this is going to do is all telemetry is disabled on the compile level, which means I don't have to come in and actually turn off any of the telemetry. It is not even enabled because they have cut the code out of the code before they've even compiled it. All right, let me look at the network settings. I can come in here and turn off the DNS over HTTPS, which is going to restore the browser to using my own firewall. So that's if I were using this on a regular basis, and I'm probably going to give it a try for a little while. I'm going to go ahead and disable that because I trust my network blocking better than their network blocking. So I'm going to go ahead and disable that. And that's one thing I certainly want to do. The next thing we need to do here is figure out the VPN stuff, although it might just automatically detect a VPN. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now by just connecting and turning on to my VPN. Now, my VPN is it's not Mullvad, it's not one of the big companies, it's my own private VPN that I have personally created. And so let's see what it's doing. So it's telling me here, enable Mullvad DNS over HTTPS. I have turned that off because I don't want that. It does tell me we're not using Mullvad, but it does seem to indicate that we are using a VPN. Of course, my VPN is hosted on my Linode account, so we are seeing information there. Note to self, block out that IP address. That one is one I don't want you to see because I use my VPN for security when I'm on wireless networks, not for masking my IP address necessarily. And apparently I'm still talking on my thing there, and I just didn't know it because I have my audio muted. So there is a little bit about this particular browser. Overall, I like it. I like the fact that it does make it a lot easier to get installed rather than just having to do it the old manual way. Here's your default search stuff. There you go. I like this setup better. We have DuckDuckGo. Mullvad Leda. I've never seen Mullvad Leda before. Let's have a look at that. So 2 search engines. Of course, we don't have Google in there. We don't have StartPage in there. DuckDuckGo is their default. That is good. Looking at the basic settings, and I think I kept the internet's security standard. So here's permission settings. There's location. Here's camera settings. So apparently the thing can still do some location stuff. VR settings. Wow, that's new. Blocking pop-up windows. Here's your security stuff. HTTPS only. You can enable it or don't enable it. I think enabling it's probably fine. You do have a few little bugs. Some of my browsers, I have it disabled for testing servers that don't have SSLs on them and things like that. Stuff like that. But other than that, though, the system seems pretty good. It does seem pretty easy to use. As you can tell, it is modified Firefox, which is exactly what we might want to see. It's blocking 21 now, all from Odyssey.tv. Look at that. All right, so before we wrap up the video, I do want to head back over because one of the articles here does have all of the settings and modifications, and I did want to read through that with you here. So here are a list of modified settings. Private mode browsing by default, which means no cookies are going to be stored. History, cookies, all that kind of stuff. As soon as you close it, it automatically just deletes everything. That is the basic default function. So if I were to close the browser down and reopen it back up, it would basically forget everything I've already seen. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see if I can do a history. You'll notice no restore previous session, no recently closed tabs, no history, nothing. So it does do a really good job of that. What won't be saved in private mode, of course, visited pages, form search bar, download list entries, cookies, cache, web content. What will be saved, bookmarks you explicitly create, extension settings, browsers, cache for internal, mostly UI components. Okay, so fingerprinting resisting is enabled. So all of the fingerprinting resistance it can possibly do, which also includes a few other things. Here's other modifications. The time zone is always reported to be UTC rather than the time zone of my computer. Not all the fonts for my computer are available to web pages, so it blocks out from different web pages from seeing the list of fonts that I have, which is a way of fingerprinting. The browser window, of course, you saw the letterboxing section that we already talked about. That prevents them from seeing what is my screen resolution. Your browser reports specific common version and operating system. I have no idea what that is. I wish it'd tell me, like, it reports your Windows 7 bleb or something. I don't know. Keyboard and layout language are disguised. Webcam microphone capabilities are disguised. Media statistics web API reports misleading information. There you go. White noise. Any site-specific zoom settings are not applied. And web speech, gamepad sensors, and other performance APIs are disabled. So here are the preferences. Fingerprinting, resist fingerprinting is set to true. And then it's going to toggle all these different things. Apparently, letterboxing is a setting we can set into Firefox. That's kind of neat. Can we do that, really? Let's give that a try real quick. Yeah, maybe it's something they added. I don't know. Or I don't have it on that version. I don't know. I should have a fairly recent version of Firefox on here. I don't know. Let's see. Report target video resolution set to 480. So it's going to, scale down that resolution. So it's a video application is not going to automatically detect your screen resolution to feed you that. Here's a list of other changes. WebGL read pixel function is disabled because the read pixel function is one of the ways that the telemetry can figure out screen resolutions and things. You can read the other list. CSS system fonts are normalized to hide any customizations at the OS level. Disable mechanisms for to synchronize settings with Mozilla. Updates are verified using open source NSS library instead of relying on OS crypto. Remove some of Firefox default extensions such as screenshots, etc. Disable special privileges that Mozilla cites, including addons.mozilla.org. And then a list of other compile options. So we talked about the compiling is where they did a lot of these things. They're disabling the crash reporter entirely. So if there's an error, you're not going to get the pop-up saying, hey, send us a report. It's going to disable the parental controls because parental controls allows the operating system to be a man-in-the-middle attack. Disables the EME for DRM, so you're not going to use Mullvad to be watching Netflix. You shouldn't be watching Netflix anyway. Talk about a corruption on society. Disabling system policies, enable bundled fonts, disable background tasks, disable the update agent, and disable default browser agent. Which is a Windows-only telemetry thing. We've already talked about the letterboxing. We have the security settings. We already talked about that. And then there's the 3 identities there. They have a new identity button. This option is useful if you want to prevent your browser's subsequent activity from including what you've already done before. Let's go ahead and have a brief look at that real quick. Oh, there it is. It's the big button that says no identity. All right, so we're going to restart Mullvad, and then that's going to give us a brand new thing. It's going to basically wipe out everything that we have previously done. DuckDuckGo is a search default. Here's your telemetry. So here's the only connections made by the browser. It does a browser update. So I guess it maybe will check and update itself. That's yet to be seen since it's brand new. Here is the Mullvad browser extension, Mullvad DNS over HTTPS. No script uBlock origin update is going to ping Mozilla for that. We have certificates, which does ping Google Let's Encrypt, basically for checking certificates. Domains update and uBlock filters. Your browser interface. Now, one of the things they mention is not to change a lot of the settings. Now, this is where I could have a small problem disabling DNS over HTTPS. I just trust my own blocking rather than their blocking because they're allowing websites through that I have explicitly blocked. And that's why I do not like DNS over HTTPS. But I also know that my blocking script blocks a whole lot more than uBlock does. So here's the basic things. There are some recommendations for the usage. Basically, this means everything is reporting the same exact fingerprint. No unaudited features, so they have looked at every little element of Firefox. And then here's a little bit of differences between this and Tor. You can read that. So when using our DNS services, how to use it, and then here's how to go ahead and do that across a variety of different things. And we recommend you use our encrypted DNS services only when you're not connected to Mullvad. When you're connected to Mullvad, the DNS requests are sent through the encrypted VPN tunnel to the DNS server on the Mullvad server that you are connected to, and that is faster. Although we've encrypted the DNS around the world, there may be one in your country that can happen, and you get a route around it. Okay, this would make DNS requests slow, and Android giving it, of course. There's that. Again, the reason I don't like it is because I do a better job blocking stuff than I trust anybody else to. That being said, when I'm connected to my VPN here, I don't have those blocking scripts on, so I don't know if I can access Facebook here or not. Let's give it a try. I might be able to. Yep, I can because I have my own private VPN on. So let me just turn mine off, which I generally only use in coffee shops anyway. I'm less worried about what's going on because I'm usually doing small, simple tasks there. Nothing major. So there is our look at the Mullvad browser. Here we go. Here it is, and so far it looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and use this on this laptop for a little bit, see what types of things that I can find with it. And with that, though, let me know your thoughts about this, and if you give it a try for a little bit of time, let us know how it goes in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.